So welcome to the channel. It's been several weeks. Last time I updated the status of this autonomous TRX-6. There's a reason I've been working a lot on the autonomous part. I knew that making this car would be the easier part of it actually. So what I have added, like in the previous videos, I added this camera holder and the servo for it. And I already have chosen and bought the camera for it. But what is next? Next is going to be the computer. The thing that makes this drive, see what's surrounding and so on. Basically the heart of the autonomous part. I think this will be a multi-part video because it takes so long to make even this one part. I had to work on this quite a lot. As I wanted to do this process and this project in a way that any one of you viewers could at least somehow try to replicate it. I could build some enormously complex systems and so on, but there's no point because for anyone to replicate them as a hobby, it just wouldn't work. So at least not for majority of people who don't have the same background as I do. So the first modification I did was actually to the car for the computer. So here's the bed. This bed here is a bit flimsy, so it flexes up and down a bit. These attachments here were okay, but they were just not sufficient. This rear end, as if I put the computer here or here, this was flexing. So what I did, I took the bumper mount and I added 2 pieces of metal to it. I will show you that soon. As you can see, I have the bumper kind of attachment here put wrong way around, upside down. And it has these holes where you could attach the rear or front bumper. What I did, I had brass, kind of like a round, not tube, but solid stick. And I basically machined it a bit to make it square, like this. Drilled hole for the screws to attach them. And I just pulled this back bed over it like this through these holes which I made. That was a mistake. And there it is. I don't need to even put pins here because I already have the pins here. So this is quite nice support. It won't move anywhere. I can put whatever I want on any part of this bed. So next thing I had to do was to choose the computer to be put here on the back of the truck. I was going through a lot of choices. I mean, there's so many different computers I could put here, from hobbies to professional level. But as I wanted everyone to be able to somehow replicate it, or do it on their own, I had basically 2 choices left. Here are the choices. Number 1, Raspberry Pi. Small computer, many of you have probably heard about it, specifically the version 4B with the maximum amount of memory. I think it was 8 gigabytes. This is what I chose as one alternative. Fits nicely here. And as the second alternative, this Intel NUC, next unit of computing or something like this. So also, well, a bit bigger than the Raspberry Pi itself, but both about the same size. What's the difference between these? Well, this is low power, well, actually quite powerful device, but still low power. Very big supporting community behind this one. Easy to interface into batteries and so on. This one is big, powerful, well, relatively powerful compared to the size. It's based on Intel CPU, at least this one, i5 I believe. Also rather low power, but maybe when it comes to the processing power, this one is up there, this one is a bit less. But the problem is often when you choose computing systems, especially when it comes to autonomous or robotics, that the apparent power and the power consumption are not always what you need to look for. In many cases, for example, the latency of action, so meaning when the sensor or the camera receives information from surroundings, goes into the computer, is processed out into control command of the motors and the wheels. Well, sometimes, even with more expensive equipment, the time that it takes from the input of the information to the output just takes way too long. Making it somehow drivable and controllable becomes impossible. It could be said that it's not really a stable system. That's more of a term used in my field of engineering. However, I've learned that cheapness, price, size has nothing to do with it, how well it performs in many cases for autonomous systems. It's all to do with how it's designed, how the components, how everything is designed in it. So I've had really expensive computers which perform really poorly, really cheap ones that perform incredibly well. So the price again is not a complete indicator. So I had to basically install some of the software which I wanted to try out for the camera and so on into both of these and give them a try. Next you will see 2 videos which contain kind of the results of my experiments. By the way, this was just an example. I actually got a bit carried away, and I made an enclosure and everything with a Raspberry Pi to put on this car. I was so sure that it's going to win. Well, that was a bit stupid of me, to be honest. I tend to often do that, buy something it's for sure going to be good, and I end up being completely wrong. But let's wait and see how it actually will work out. Meanwhile, here's the actual one which I tested. It's inside here. Oh, you can see the connectors here. I put it a power button so that you could shut down and put it on safely. This power cable, USB-C free, and all kind of places where you can put the memory card and so on. Why such a big box? Well, the reality with Raspberry Pis for whatever versions is that in order to get the full power out of them, you need to have cooling. So have a big fan and cooling fins underneath here. Otherwise, if you don't cool it by default, it will just throttle itself down. Every time it does some heavier processing, you will not get the proper performance out of it. So in fact, if you look at this one here, this Intel NUC, it has like a slot here where air comes out. So this one has the cooling considered. How small would this be without the actual need for power supply management cooling? Therefore, one might say this Raspberry Pi is this small only because it's lacking a lot of things. Well, I did this kind of nice, sit nicely here on the back of the autonomous crawler, but yeah, let's see. Let's see if all this work was complete waste of time. Yeah, let's see. Here's now the box where my Raspberry Pi 4 is. As I tried the Raspbian before, it didn't really work out very well. And in the end, I realized that, okay, I got this stereo camera working with Raspbian or Raspberry Pi OS. But the problem really was that I couldn't get ROS 2 working on it. ROS I could have gotten working on it. I would prefer not to use ROS. I've used it a lot before, but it's an older, kind of like it's going to be not the future. ROS 2 is supposed to be it. So Raspberry Pi was full of problems while putting Ubuntu there, and I found some instructions how to do it, and I managed to get ROS 2 on it. I don't know how well it works or not. And I managed to get this Intel RealSense on it, so it required Ubuntu. You can now see the image at some, okay, let's look at something that makes more sense. Okay, there's my laptop in the front and some of my stuff in the background, but basically this is the depth map. If I rotate slightly, it takes quite a long time to do anything, so the latency, the delay between input-output is quite long, and if you're trying to do some sort of control with this, it's pretty much useless. And you're not able to get a stable control, at least not very easily with it. Okay, so it's just so slow that the image isn't always updated correctly, and there's something that seems to be every now and then missing from the image. But if I end up using it, it will have to be with Ubuntu. And to be honest, with Ubuntu, I had to put Lubuntu version with a lighter desktop so that it doesn't just fall apart. Even this one has so many bugs. On Raspberry Pi, it's also I'm having problems with the graphics, screen going, I mean, it's just an endless problem. And as I would like this, what I'm doing is something that others can also repeat. The installation of all of this wasn't easy. I think I will just let this Raspberry Pi be for now and go for the Intel NUC. I tried different operating system versions and so on it, and ended up with Ubuntu. After a bit of trial and error and a lot of problems, I managed to install all the software needed for the autonomous crawler into this one. Despite it's now powered from the network, from a power supply, this one, it can still connect it to a battery, a LiPo 4S most likely. And well, it's warming up a bit, but it seems to work okay. So this is the results from the camera. Looks nice. You can see the different colors represent different distances. And moreover, if I do like this, it immediately, so if I put camera here and I turn it in like left, right, it changes instantly, almost instantly. There's not much noticeable delay here. Works really fast, no problems with buttons, anything. So I'm really happy with this performance, very happy with the NUC. I think I'm going to install this old Intel NUC into my autonomous crawler. So as I told you earlier, I was a bit worried that I have made that rather beautiful box for my Raspberry Pi earlier, that it was completely pointless to make it. As you saw in the previous parts of the video, I think I was right and I shouldn't have bothered with it. This was way better. This Raspberry Pi, the one in the box, I had problems installing all the software on this one, problems getting it working. It was, I can do it. I've done it many times. I can put all kind of stuff running on this one. Is it easy? No. Is it time consuming? Extremely so. Just not one which I would then choose for this. And the fact that the performance was really bad, even with the extreme cooling system which I built to it. It just wasn't up to actually, even someone could say, yeah, you could boost it up and overclock it and so on, and I just realized with earlier testing, which I have done with another Raspberry Pi before, that it's just about the design. It just doesn't work well for this. It works very perfectly for many purposes, but for this kind of purpose, it's just wrong design. However, interesting, this Intel NUC, which is kind of the reference design for the Intel RealSense camera, which I bought for the autonomous truck, this one works. I'm surprised. There were some problems with the installation due to really bad instructions. I will put into the description links in the correct order to the pages and websites which I used in help, or where I looked at instructions for installing main portion of software in this one. Though I have to caution you with that, because I'm still not finished with this. I'm still quite far from finished this one, so I cannot guarantee what software changes there might still happen. But at least that's something to start with, and we will again see how wrong I am and so on. So this is it. Intel NUC will be placed somewhere here or here. I also already checked about the battery situation, and despite this one has a 19-volt power supply connection, it seems it's accepting between 12 and 19, and I realized that a 4S LiPo will be a perfect match for this one. So I think I will add a LiPo warning, this buzzer sound device, to prevent this one from drowning it empty. And this one already has the button to stop or start this device. Yeah, so I think now it's a lot to do with getting all the software working in this one. And I think that will be the part 2 of this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.